Hello. I'm thinking this will be the first of many entries as I go on these little excursions. Just kind of taking in the sights and sounds. In addition to it being a place for me to just talk about the things that I am concerned about, it's also just a means of being able to track my journey as I try to amend my fitness downfalls, health and fitness downfalls. Dapper's been eating too much. So I have access to this beautiful country where, you know, you'd have to go pretty far for beautiful sights like this and just being in touch with nature. So am I taking away from part of that being in touch with nature by walking around with my phone and being connected to a Discord call to record my audio on a second track? Yeah, I am. But shut up. So, you know, we'll see how it goes. But I'd like to make this a regular thing, potentially even daily, if I can manage it. Unless there's like some horrible weather that doesn't allow me, then I don't see any reason not to. If anything, if you like and watch these videos, you can think of it as keeping Dapper accountable to his fitness regime. Hopefully, vlogging with the sounds of nature and me huffing and puffing isn't too much of a detractor from listening to anything that I have to say. So, Chapter 1. Stardate 102323. Or I guess I should be 1023. I'll have to do dates in that Japanese format where you go year, month, day. But I'm super excited right off the top. Twitch allowing multicasting is such a huge W for them. It makes me so happy because I do like Twitch. It's a great time. There's an audience there that I obviously tapped into whenever Asmongold decided to watch my video. And I'd like to do more to enhance the Twitch experience, but it also just felt like it's very hard to make videos on YouTube that have that level of success and then get those people to come over and hang out on Twitch. Those two things don't often coincide with one another unless you're users like me or the few other people who hang out in Twitch. But there's also just so many options on Twitch, right? So if you're a kind of person who's very much dedicated to the YouTube ecosystem and you just want to watch videos on YouTube, but then maybe you watch one of my videos and I happen to be live, it's a lot easier to click into the YouTube stream and be like, hey, just watched your video, it was great. And even if they stick around for like 2 minutes, it's cool to have that opportunity to be like, yeah, I'm also streaming live on Twitch, come on over. Now, to what extent YouTube has rules about directing people off of the YouTube site onto Twitch, I'm not so sure. But ever since instating this whole you can now multicast on other sites, there are some caveats with that on the part of Twitch. They've been saying things like, you know, make sure the experience on Twitch is no less than equal, if not better, to the experience on other websites. And I'm just like, yeah, to be fair, if I'm using an application like Restream, which is my solution for now, then yeah, obviously the streams are going to be the same. It's whatever feed they're getting from Restream it'll be identical. But when it comes to like features, if you want to call it that, as long as you have the 7TV Chrome extension, both channels get access to those emotes, which is fun. But all the channel redemption sounds for TTS, being able to like donate $1 and use TTS Monster, that's Twitch. All that fun stuff. So, and in some cases, you know, some of my followers are like me, where they actively use both platforms. So you could potentially use both in tandem. You could be watching on YouTube, but then be enjoying the fun features that Twitch has to offer. So I think it's a huge W in that sense, because people who maybe aren't involved on the Twitch side of things might get involved as a result of the, you know, whole FOMO notion. I think it's a great opportunity for them. I think it's a very smart decision. I'm glad someone who's in touch with how these things work, i.e. Dan Clancy, is in charge over there, at least to like put forward these suggestions at a very high level, because it's my understanding, at least from Charlie, aka Penguin Zero, aka Most Critical, you know, he's explained that he's met Dan Clancy before and other employees of Twitch, and that despite their wish to be a cohesive unit, it doesn't always pan out that way. It often becomes this notion of disconnected units that operate well within themselves but don't communicate between each other very well. So to have these things come from the top down, allow for these things to be implemented in a much better way. That being said, all these other great features that have come through, especially on the mobile app with the stories and stuff, it's great. Like, I understand you have to adapt to the industry. Everybody's doing this short form content stuff now. But dude, one of the best ways that, you know, it's purely speculative, but I feel like I have a huge opportunity. If I have to get up and go do something, whether it's like helping my wife out with something, or, you know, one time I went to the grocery store with my wife and left my stream live, but I was able to interact with chat and keep people engaged because I just went in on my phone and started using the chat that way through my phone while I was ootin' a boot. But then they updated the app and now I can't do that. I'm locked out of my chat because there's this window pane element of it thinks that I'm constantly trying to send a cheer to myself, but I can't even do that. So they need to fix that as soon as possible, because for at least the way that I'm trying to do things, it's quite a hindrance. I don't know how well people will be able to understand me, because I can already tell that I'm having to take breaks in my long, seemingly one-word sentences. But here's hoping some people find it interesting. I haven't come up with the name yet. I'm thinking about it as we go along. Dapper chats? Dapper touches grass? Something like that. Or just like offhand, out of breath, or off the cuff, because like cuff, dapper, I don't know. we'll think about it. But yeah, all in all, I think the changes for Twitch are really great. I'm very happy that I can now take whatever content I put in a stream format and just have it immediately backed up on YouTube. Because YouTube really does act as like a repository for if I ever need to reference things down the line or like make a quick clip. It doesn't have to be, you know, super high fidelity. If there's some loss in the encoding or some level of compression, anything that I do doesn't need to be like ultra high quality. As long as the audio is okay. All of that is referenceable. And if there's a certain like clip that I need, I can just go to that particular video, find the time area that I need, and screen record it with OBS. And that works just fine. Saves me the trouble of having to download. It really is a lot better that way because, man, it was a little bit daunting having to adhere to the whole, you can't multicast, and also whenever you want to upload your streams to another platform, you have to wait 24 hours. So now I'm like ending my stream at 2 a.m. I have slow internet. I'm trying to start the download of like an 8-hour stream, which is, you know, to wager a guess, an average of like 20 gigabytes. So I have to let this thing download overnight, and then I have to upload it. If there was, you know, a long intro of nothing going on that I want to edit out, that's more time before I can start uploading it to YouTube, and then have to schedule it accordingly so that it appears later. And then I was trying my best to do like the red button to indicate this is a live stream. So if you're not into that long unedited format, don't click on this. But it's also just like clogging up a video feed that really should be reserved for edited videos. And now I can do that, which is awesome. Now, these will still end up in the regular video feed because these I plan to have separate from Twitch, because Twitch isn't really that great for podcast style formats unless you're doing the live podcast and uploading the episodes later, because maybe interacting with the chat is a part of the way that you do that podcast. Like Linus Tech Tips does that, but that's not really for me. I find that if there are certain things that I want to talk about, what I found, especially in the last month, is that it's very hard to keep people on topic. It's very easy to get derailed and go off in like a number of different directions because there just isn't there isn't always a common interest in the topic. So people are just kind of like, well, I've been thinking about this a lot, so I want to get this off my chest. And that's fine. So that's why I'd rather have this little vlog session that's twofold. Over time, hopefully I'll be a lot less breathless and a little bit more fit. Maybe you'll see it in my face over time, we'll see. But I'll make a point of trying to make sure everything's charged up so that this can be like a regular thing, because Lord knows I need it. It's a good outlet for me to get things off my chest unfiltered. People can kind of just listen to this, I don't know, when they're going to bed or if they're on their way to work or something. I'll have to play around with the two audio tracks and see how they line up, whether I sound better through the natural mic on this phone or through the recorded Discord call. We'll see. There might be times where I have to like mix the two, but if it can be as low effort as possible, that's ideal. Because the point is just to have long form content with minimal, if not no editing, so that we can just throw it up there, talk about the topics of the day, and hopefully it does well. I mean, in the worst case, I'll probably still do them just for myself, because there's a lot of potential for that to inspire like other videos in the future. Maybe somebody does take the time to listen and comes across a certain topic that they care about, and they're like, yeah, you should talk more about this. And then I just make a more formal video about subject X, chemical X. I feel like that would be fun. And I mean, so far so good. I don't know how long I plan to make these in total. Depends how fast I walk. No, but I mean, ideally, I'm probably aiming for around the like 1 hour mark, because I feel like I'm trying to get to a certain point where I've reached the sort of plateau of benefit from exercise. So if I can get things so that after about an hour of, well, I wouldn't call this intense activity, but higher level of intensity than normal walking, because I'd say right now I'm doing like a speed walk of sorts, then, you know, I should call it, because the only reason for me to keep going is if I'm on a run thinking about something and I'm getting it off my chest. But I feel like the benefits from a fitness perspective are limited after you've been going consistently for an hour or more. My understanding is it's usually more like half an hour. So I know that I'm covering off what I need to if I go for an hour at this pace. And maybe over time I'll become more efficient at it. So either I'll just increase the circuit or, you know, change the pace that I'm going, or both. I hope the audio is still okay. I'm just like having blind faith that everything sounds good. There might be certain days when, you know, I gotta deal with something like rain or snow or probably the worst of all, for the sake of recording, wind. Because I've taken some shots of like really nice landscapes, and yeah, you pretty much have to remove the audio because it's just pure wind over microphone. What else did I want to talk about? I've been thinking about doing more videos that entail life in Finland as an immigrant. The only trouble is that, I don't know, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I think it's not as relatable content when the notion of you being an immigrant is moving from Canada to Finland. It's like, all right, okay, white boy, immigrant, you know? I feel like there's an undertone of that, potentially. That kind of undermines the point, but if people are considering moving abroad to a different country, there's potentially some value I have to offer, at least in like advice from a like a mentality standpoint, because, you know, credit where credit's due. I did something kind of crazy, meeting a person online and just like leaving everything behind so that I could be somewhere else forever. Like, sheesh. I don't know what that says about me. It's not like life was completely terrible in Canada, but, you know, I'd certainly argue that it's better now. I have a lot more freedom because my wife is very supportive of the things that I want to do, in out of pure interest of me being happy. So I think that's why I put so much effort into making regular content, especially while I have the time right now, is because otherwise I'm just sitting around, and I want to be productive and find success in some way, because I want to be able to repay that support. If I can somehow support her in some combination of me being a content creator / programmer, that would be ideal. I feel like she deserves it. So here's hoping. Keep watching. I need that watch time right now. You know, I try not to be too much of a metrics guy, but in the current stage where I'm not considered a YouTube partner, I'd like to be, because I don't like the notion of this virtualized begging. It doesn't make me feel good. So if I can just produce content and have companies who are buying ad spots pay for it, that's more ideal for me, because then it's nothing out of your pocket. Some people have been extremely generous, and I do really appreciate that, but if I could remove the need of contribution on the part of the viewer, I would. I just think about it from the user experience standpoint, is like, does that mean on YouTube that you get served more ads? I'm not sure about that. My understanding is that whether or not I'm earning any kind of AdSense, you're still getting served ads as a result of watching these videos, unless you're using one of those softwares or you pay for premium. I'm a premium user. I haven't had to deal with that for some time. So on the occasional time that I happen to open a video in like another browser or something like that, then I'm like, oh wow, this is a lot of ads. But I've even seen it happen when I'm trying to watch one of my own videos. So I think, well, if you're being served ads anyway, then yes, I would like to be a YouTube partner as soon as possible, because it shouldn't be YouTube benefiting from my videos. It should be me. Even then, they're only giving like a share of whatever they're profiting from that, because, you know, it's understandable. That's why they're implementing this whole like, oh, we see that you're using a VPN or an ad blocker, disable it or buy premium, because they got to pay for servers and stuff like that. Sure, there's always the notion that like, ooh, corporation bad, corporation take too much. But there are still costs that they have to cover. And they can't simply cover the costs and call it a day. They have a Silicon Valley based employee system to feed. And I'm sure like it's Google, so they're all over the world. But it's not like everyone who works for Google wants to be an offshore employee and move out of places like the United States so that things can be more affordable for Big Brother. Like, there's salaries to pay. It's understandable. And I can also understand the fact that for those who come from places of a lower standard of living or countries overall where the conversion rate isn't so great, it would be nice if YouTube adapted to that. I haven't looked into it myself, but you know, as far as I know, Twitch has done that when you're trying to subscribe to a channel. If you're in a place of lesser means, because, you know, I don't know the names of all currencies, but if the dollar is weaker in country X than country Y, then, you know, they get a discount. And the profit sharing for both Amazon and the Twitch streamer are less, but it allows people to be able to do that, to contribute with the means that they have without breaking the bank. Because I mean, you know, arguably they shouldn't even have to do that. I feel like if you're from certain countries, especially ones that are war torn right now, you should be able to just watch things without having to deal with that. I don't know how you do that, because if you do it purely based on location, well, then everybody goes out and gets a VPN and says that they're watching from that country. And they're probably willing to deal with the latency because it's free real estate. What are you going to complain about? You get what you pay for. So, I don't know how you would do it effectively, because some people just want to use their VPN for the sake of security. So if you implement the whole YouTube thing of, oh, we see you're using a VPN, turn it off, that makes a number of VPN users uncomfortable. Not everybody knows how to navigate the internet safely. I mean, if you're talking to someone who's technically savvy, which I consider myself to be, then, oh, you want me to turn my VPN off? Okay, I'll just make sure the only means in which I'm connecting to the internet right now is watching YouTube videos, and my VPN will be off. Then it's like, am I in a public cafe? Well, then maybe I shouldn't be watching videos right now if I'm that paranoid that someone's gonna tap into my data traffic. And I mean, most people have data plans now. At least in Canada, it's arguably the most expensive thing that you can buy in the world is internet. Whether it's mobile, whether it's connecting to the home with a hardwire. There's a good fiber network infrastructure. So, I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can get your entertainment without having to rely on public sources. But not everybody has the means to do that, understandably. So, it's an interesting thought. I'm very curious to see how it pans out. But I mean, you know, everybody compares it to the Netflix cracking down on password sharing. And it didn't change anything. Even if they backpedaled, subscriptions for Netflix, as far as I know, went through the roof. Maybe not through the roof, but they improved. Actually, I feel like taking the hood down was a bad idea. I don't know if wind is now blowing into the microphone more than it already was. I like walking this nature path though. I've had a couple of side-eye glances, but for the most part it's quite calm. So I feel like this is the place where I can express myself the most freely. Also, my hands get a little cold, so I'm just passing you back and forth, giving you a constant change of angle. But yeah, I feel like for the most part, the people who actively have a willingness to pay for YouTube are already paying for it. People who are, well off and can afford the individual package, it's like a drop in the bucket for them. I had someone yesterday say that, it's like 1/3 of an hour's pay for me. So, that's insignificant. Especially for something that they probably use every single day, constantly. If they're anything like me, I definitely consider myself to be a power user of YouTube. So, it's where I get all my information. It's where I've learned more than anything I've probably ever learned in school, to be frank. I imagine the situation will be very similar to Netflix, where history has shown people will adapt. It's an invaluable service that people want to use. There's no way that cracking down on password sharing is going to have a negative effect. It's going to earn them profit, guaranteed. Does that mean pushing aside the little guy in favor of capitalism? I mean, what else can you say besides, it is what it is, welcome to the world, dude? And it's a constant arms race. People will probably find alternative means of being able to access the content they want. And I mean, I can't remember when ads first started, but there was definitely a long period of time where I was actively dealing with the ads. I remember being the guy who had to click on the skip button and rolling my eyes every time some commercial rolled through. It didn't exactly ruin the experience. It depends on the kind of content you're watching, I suppose. But from the standpoint of, I'm watching a tutorial to learn about X, it gives you a mental reprieve. If you're taking in a lot of stuff all at the same time, you get a little breather to catch up. It's no different than when I was a kid watching television. If suddenly there's a commercial break, take off the headphones, get up, do a stretch, go take a shit, come back. I think it does a pretty good job of being it's not how long ago this person watched an ad, it's at what point in the video they watched the ad. So even if you came back from your shit and the video started playing again, you can backtrack and still have the ability to watch through the point where you left off without seeing an ad until the next potential ad position. As far as I know. I can definitely sense that my breaths are getting heavier. My sentences, or we'll call them speaking turns, are getting shorter. But I see it as a good thing. I'm gonna make sure that my Apple Watch is regularly charged. And before people say anything, I need to note, my dad's a big fan of Apple. He, the man with the salary, decides to afford himself these overpriced gifts where you're paying more for the brand than you are for the tech, i.e. Apple. I didn't buy an Apple Watch. I didn't buy an iPhone. He upgraded his shit and he gave me his old shit. If it was up to me, I'd be full Android. And I was. Especially when I worked at Best Buy. I miss my Note 4. I loved having my big screen with my stylus. It felt so nerdy and cool. Which most people would consider an oxymoron, but I do not. Nerdy is cool. So, I digress. My hope is to give like a little summary of like, yeah, I made it through this walk. Here's how many steps it said I did. Here's how many calories. And if nothing else, I'm just ranting and going through what I feel is a somewhat cathartic process and trying to make myself more active and fit. Because I think if I jump into something like running or lifting weights, I'm bound to get tired and start resenting the process. Whereas I feel like going for walks on a regular basis, it's kind of hard to make an excuse not to. And it's very sustainable. Because it's not like when you come home from a hour-long walk, you're like so debilitated you can't do anything else. Whereas like there's been a few times I come home from the outdoor gym. They have outdoor gyms here. It's awesome. You come home from the outdoor gym and you're just like, oh, I can't lift my arms. Oh, it sucks. So I'm trying my best to avoid that. But yeah. But especially right now, while the only thing I have to do is things of my own willpower, which for the most part has been content creation, I should be taking some of that time and incorporating at least a modicum of health and fitness, which is just going for a long walk. And then, you know, my brain says, oh, what am I going to do on the walk? What am I going to do? Just walk? I can't do that. I have to talk to myself like a crazy person. I think this will very much help the process of me getting in a better level of health. I think a lot of people do like, you know, journals or something to that effect. And this really is that. I'm just planning to do it in a more public way. I don't really care too much about negative feedback. You know, like, say what you want. You're an NPC. I used to care a lot. But now that I'm married, it feels kind of like, oh, who gives a shit what anybody has to say? Just absent-mindedly walking into someone's driveway. Whoopsies. Someone's having a campfire. It smells really nice. I want to go roast some marshmallows with them. Nothing like getting lost in city nature. That's the thing that makes Helsinki so great, though, is that there's just this very accessible way of tapping into nature while still accommodating us city boys. because I think I would struggle with just full-blown being in nature. Although the way that they go about this is often confusing to me, because I'm also rather respectful of private property, and I'm trying to avoid encroaching on private property. But some people just like live out here, and I'm like, all right, well, sorry. That's all I can do is be Canadian. Sorry. Wrong way. And taxi. Where the heck am I? I think I'm supposed to go this way. I've mostly walked here in the winter. It's a little bit more of a trek for like starting a video, but I feel like it's worth it. There's probably other places I can go to in the future. I feel like that's the nice thing about these, is it's just something I can do impromptu. And so long as there isn't any issue with the audio through the phone itself, you probably get to enjoy a lot of like lovely birds chirping and ASMR gravel under shoes, the crack of a branch, you know, it's nice. And I get to enjoy seeing all the puppies walking. So many cute puppies. That is why I came out here to do vlogging, though, is because there's definitely an element of, if I was just doing this walking down the sidewalk, I feel like I'd be annoying people for the most part. So it's nice to not be annoying people. Every time I see a passerby, I can't help but be like, no, I'm not talking to myself. I'm clearly on a phone call. What do you mean? You see people do it all the time. I'm not one of those annoying vloggers. Yes, I am. I should start making my way back to civilization, though, because I can feel the cries for technology. This was nice, though. Thanks for coming with me. That would be kind of funny if I approached my addressing you, the viewer, as like, what was his name from Blue's Clues? It's like, hey, it's you. That would be funny. Wow, you look great. It would work twofold, because like, A, I'm complimenting the viewer despite not knowing what they look like, and it's complimentary. But also the whole notion of looking yourself in the mirror and giving self-affirmations, like, wow, look at you out and about. Good for you. Keep going. I can't help but be self-conscious about each time I'm trying to push out a sentence, I'm running out of breath and going for these like little gasps. But I mean, that's what I get for not being active on a regular basis. So hopefully it doesn't deter too much from the conversation or the monologue. But, you know, over time, I'm sure it'll get better. Can't help but be self-conscious about it, though. It's the nature of who I am as a person. I don't care what people think, but I often care what I think about myself. And that's an ongoing battle, as I'm sure it is for many. But you can't give in. There's tons of potential in everyone, and you just have to channel that negativity into something positive. Force yourself out of your comfort zone. I was saying before, I would like to do more content about being in Finland. And I think if I was going to start, people call this the happiest place in the world. And my wife will be quick to correct me that, well, like any country, there's lots of things that need fixing in terms of the politics. But if you push all that aside and you just think about the accessibility to nature and not having to go so far away from like the amenities of a city life and just being able to enjoy touching some grass, you know, this is a wonderful place. I have to go quite far to get something like this. Because like where I'm from, even if we do have like our little gravel paths, which are nice for like biking or something like that, most of the time you're just whipping past a bunch of like established housing streets, and you're just like behind the streets on this path going past a bunch of backyards. That's not what this is. Maybe it's like that in some places, like other cities or regions here. But yeah, I think it helps a lot with people's mentality. It's very relaxing. Furthermore, you feel like at times you're really in the thick of it, but you don't have to deal with some of those potential dangers. Like, I remember my dad sending me stuff being like, be careful when you're in Finland, there are bears. Like, no. Maybe like up north, if you're way out in the boonies, but not really. And for the most part, any kind of treacherous predator is like, you know, the old saying, they're more afraid of you than you are of them. Maybe not you personally, but of civilization and technology. They tend to steer away from being near big, fast-moving motor vehicles and things. So they'd have to cross a lot of streets in order to find like any place near this. So even then, this is just like one of the safest places to be. So yeah, having access to this makes me very happy. It's very relieving. And I don't know if it's just like something I get to appreciate right now because I'm not in a 9 to 5, because it feels rather quiet. But I also think that I just fail to appreciate what it feels like to be in, population-wise, such a smaller country. As far as I can recall, Canada's like what, 30 million? US is like 300 million. Finland as a whole, everybody tossed in the pot, is like 5 or 6 million. It's like, whoa, okay. But that also comes with its challenges, because then people in certain skills are in short supply, namely doctors. And you think about like, oh, well, you're in a city center, so it's probably not so bad. I mean, that's perhaps true. But there's also this whole notion of like, well, of the doctors that are available, the most are here, but arguably also the most people are in the South. So that extrapolates and goes north, and you're dealing with a real problem across the board. I'm very used to a system in which, you know, in Canada, it's hard to find a family doctor. In Finland, you don't have a family doctor. You look after your own, you know, biological readings and statistics. You log in online and you look at your shit and you're like, oh, what's going on with this number? Better go check my blood pressure. I don't know, I'm just being arbitrary. But I also feel like there's a huge culture of like people knowing how to look after themselves because they've just been taught that way. Whereas I don't think Canada does a very good job of that. There's no, I don't know, you could say that there's pros and cons to everything, right? But Finland has an identity. Maybe not all of them are like, yeah, Suomia. But lots of them are. But that comes with a lot of great things, which, you know, they all kind of learn the same things in school about what it is to be Finnish. And part of that is like, you know, going out into nature and being healthy. Like, lots of people have gone camping and fishing and like, I don't know if they could, you know, live off the wild, but they've at least been exposed to it, where I feel many Canadians have not. There's less of an issue of sprawl, like the majority of people, even in the farthest reaches of the country, you know, at some point, either they come down or we go up and like come in contact in some way. Whereas like, I've never been farther west than like Windsor, and not farther east than like, well, now I'm just testing my geography, which is very lacking, especially in Canadian geography. But you know, like Montreal, Mont-Tremblant. I don't know if have I been to Quebec City? I can't remember. But we're talking like very short trips there where I didn't fully appreciate it in terms of where I was. I was just like in the moment participating in some family activity. So and I mean, I don't know who measures the standards. I don't have things offhand to reference But my understanding is that the education system is of much higher quality here than it is in Canada in terms of knowing about the world, being savvy, and knowing about the existence of other countries, who their leaders are, things like that. People just feel very much more in touch here. That could be my own bias and based on purely empirical evidence, but that's just how it feels. I wish other countries had more of this. I mean, not every country can. Yes, I hear you. Thank you, sir. There's a crow. There you go. But I just feel like Canada isn't doing enough as far as education. I think we're investing in a lot of other things, which are also important, but it all kind of starts with the youth. And I lived like in a very urban area and didn't have access to like a lot of interesting subjects that I feel are very accessible here. I also come from what I feel is a place of privilege. Like, my father isn't rich, but he made sure that there was money set aside so that I could go to university. Whereas, like, that's not even a consideration here. You just go. You just practice and, you know, pass your entry exams and get educated. Free. That's like unheard of. People can't imagine that kind of thing in many other countries. Tuition fees and textbooks and, you know, in some cases you're not near your home when you're doing that, so the living expenses that come with like renting a place, feeding yourself. A lot of cases people have to work a job at the same time, which is extremely stressful. So I mean, if you were going to try to attempt that, I can see why Finland would be a good choice. Although if you're an international, like not a resident, then you're paying tuition fees, as far as I know. The freeness of university comes with the fact that you're either a resident or a citizen. Which is why I'm quite eager to apply myself, because even though I have a degree, it'd be nice to have another one. And that's where it kind of comes down to the cons of the national identity, is that everyone does very much look out for each other, but I would argue more often than not for their fellow like Finnish, and it's because they've all kind of gone through the same experience, especially if you're male, because you have to go through like I forget the proper word. I'm pretty sure it's considered conscription, but like it's a limited term where everybody has to spend a minimum of a year in service. Don't quote me on that. Some amount of time they have to serve as like a reservist. And I think that happens when you turn like 18 or something, up until the age of 30. And some people choose like, oh, this is what I want to do as my job. And so people just stay within that system. And I think that creates a deep element of like loyalty to one another. Because it's like, yes, you're my countryman. I'll look out for you, whether it's our involvement in the military or outside of the military. So getting a degree here bodes well because there's more trust in people who are truly integrated into society here, whether it's by like knowing certain individuals or like having credentials from their institutions here. Like, sure, I'm sure they recognized my degree from a Canadian university, but at the same time, you know, how good is our education versus theirs? In that particular program from that particular university, who's to say that's up to snuff, up to par? And I mean, I don't have anything to compare it to because I haven't been through that system here. But my understanding is that you could make an argument that my education is poor. I'd also argue that I haven't been to formal schooling for many years. I did a boot camp for front-end web development, but that was very informal. At times, I would argue unprofessional. So it's something I'd like to experience. If not now, then in the future. Because I don't think there's any limit as to when you can participate. It's just a question of if you want to or not. And I certainly want to, because I'd like to have a background in computer science, because right now I just have a general degree, and that was fine. I learned a lot, but there's something to be said about retaining knowledge in general versus retaining knowledge that you feel is practical and useful to the things you like to do. Anyways, I feel like I've kind of emptied my brain quite a bit. I'll have to come up with more subjects. If I'm going to do this every single day, I shouldn't exhaust all my thoughts. Although it's funny to think about exhausting everything I have to think about in one day. It makes my brain feel rather empty. But yeah, I might just end it off here and then catch y'all in the next episode. I didn't quite end it yet because I was coming up on a young couple and their dog, and I didn't feel like being all cool vlogger sign off in front of them. Not that I have a cool vlogger sign off. I just wanted to say look out for your health and fitness, and consider doing something similar yourself. Have a chat with yourself, and you know, take time to appreciate who you are, and push away any of that negative thinking and focus on the things that are positive in your life. I know that's what I've been doing lately, and you know, besides, you know, looking out for myself from a health and fitness standpoint, my mental's been very good. I'm the happiest I've ever been, and I attribute most of that to being with my wife. But you can still do it by yourself. Before she popped into my life, I was definitely on an upward trend of just feeling happy and engaged. You just have to find the things that you like to do and make time for them, even if it's a small amount of time. Anyway, enough ranting. See you later.